All right, blessings on your life. Blessings on your life. It's another day that the Lord has made, and we're going to rejoice and be glad in it. As you all can hear, I'm a bit congested. I've been under the weather a little bit, and but God is good. Sometimes the Lord has to allow certain things to happen to you so you can rest. So on Sunday, I was resting because I was a bit under the weather, but all things are good now. We back, and I give God praise. Um, I want you to focus uh, in on my hat, my cap, if you will. It says right here, tap out, and I raise that awareness because visual, because I think a lot of us we are tapping out on the things that we need to tap in on, and instead of us tapping out, it is a time for us to shine. It is a time for us to shine. And so, on this wonderful cold day, I want to put a bow on where we've been. I've been telling you that I was going to come back and finish it. And so today I'm going to come back and finish it. We're going to close out the series, A Star is Born. This particular series is so important. And I went through uh, some very, uh, some very deep places. And I went up the mountain, through the valley, over the hills we go, uh, to explain to you the importance of a star. And I'm still not done with it, but I want to put a bow on it at this place. We'll come to the intersection, if you will. But it's so necessary for you to understand how critical you are. And I did that. I tried to help us understand that with respect to uh, Jesus, and the culmination, the climax of how he came to be what we know him to be now. And there is a culmination slash climax of who you are, or what you are supposed to be, what you have been sent here to be. But a lot of us are not living up to that standard. So I went through great lengths to get you to see that. And if you have not, I want you to visit A Star is Born. There's a part one, part two, I believe, and then this right here will be the close of this section of A Star is Born. Now, in that, I took us from the book of Nehemiah, the second chapter, and we read from verses 1 through 8, where it describes to us the decree of the king. And in Daniel 9:25, it talks about from the day, or from the time that the decree goes forward, um, there shall be this. And this right here will denote the coming of the king, um, the coming of the Messiah. It will also denote the demise of the Messiah in terms of what we understand as life here on earth. Um, and so I highlighted that, or I tried to highlight that, to get you to understand that there is a set time for you to enter and for you to exit, even yourself. It's what you're going to do in the interim of that set time. So today, without going back and dealing with all the different things as it relates to the 70 years, which was 490 years when we look at the Shabuah, we know that the Shabuah, by definition, means seven sevens. So when we look at the context of Daniel 9 and 2, or 9 and 1, it talks about 70 years. So we know that that 70 in context deals with years, not days, not weeks. But Shabuah means to deal with whatever number you're dealing with in seven. So seven sevens. It could be 7 days, 7 months, 7 years, 7 hours, but it's seven sevens. That gets us to a place in Daniel 9:25 when we look at the segregation, if you will, of the time period. The first period was 7 weeks, Then there was a pause for the year of Jubilee, which was 7 weeks, again, seven sevens. Shabua, which will be 49 years. Then we have another year that we pay attention to, but we don't count it. That is the year of Jubilee. Then we get into three score in 2 weeks, which would be 62 weeks. And so when you look at that in terms of Shabua, you have to multiply or do the math on that. And so when you do the 49 and the 62, when you add those together, you come up with. So I'm having some glitches in the system, and Apple's supposed to have, you know, all these tricks and stuff like that. They talked me into getting this Apple laptop, this MacBook, and I'd have been better off just sticking with what I know. Um, so it looks like I'm gonna end up having to get a new laptop. So, anyways, the time of the decree, according to Nehemiah 2:1 through 8, that was given by King Artaxerxes during that particular time. What it was, or what they're saying is, but from the time that it goes forth until the Messiah, from the time of the decree until the Messiah. So we start to do the math on that. And when we look at Daniel 9:25, it talks about the 7 weeks. Uh, so you again, you have to incorporate the Shabua. The Shabua is seven sevens, so 7 weeks would be 7 times 7, which would be 49. So it's 49 years because we have to put that in context. And the context goes back to Daniel 9:1 and 2, which deals with the 70 years. Um, that's the completion. And again, 70 years would be 70 times 7, which we get to 490. So the total now of this period is 490 years. So we go back, let's go back and then go back forward again. We're still looking at this series of stars born. So when you look at the 7 times 7, you get to 49 weeks, or you get the 49 years. Then you have a pause in there, which would be the year of Jubilee, which is 50. Then you get the 60, or you have the three score, and then you have the 2 weeks. And you can read that now. You know, we went through it over and over again, and I don't want to keep going back through it. That's in Daniel 9:25. So then you get the three score, which is 60, and then the two, which makes it 62. So either you have 62 years, or you're going to have 62 weeks. But still, it's still going to it's going to be 62 years because you have to do the Shabua, which is the 7 sevens. So you look at it in terms of weeks, but then you do the Shabua, which is 7 sevens, and you get the years. So then once you get to the 60 and 2, you add the 60 and 2 with the 49, and you come up with 483. Or you could look at it, you could do the math already and just take the 7 weeks. 7 times 7 is 49. You could just say 49 times 62 weeks, which is 62 times 7 is 434. And then you can add the 434 to the 49 years, and you come up with 483. So 483 is where we need to be right now. So we're talking about the 483. So today is going to be about the 483. The 483 marks the time of the Messiah's birth, and somewhere in there is the time of the Messiah's death. So it's right around there. And then we start to work with uh, the harvest, or this is the time of the evangelism, is which is the period in which we are at right now. In other words, it is the time where you speak out and you say something. However, that brings us to our text today, and our text will be taken out of Matthew chapter number 2, beginning at verse number 1. And this is what it says here. It says, "Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod the king." Now, all that is really important when it talks about in the days of King Herod, because King Herod is his nature is important. His reign is important. His agenda is important, and you have to know that as it relates to the time that you live in, and the king that's reigning in place right now, that's a heathen king, and its nature and all that. So it says in that particular day. It says, behold, there was wise men from the east to Jerusalem. There was wise men that came, or behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, and saying, verse number 2, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east. For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Where is this King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and we have come to worship him. I've said now, this is the third week, fourth week, fifth week, sixth week. I don't know. It's been a while. We done skipped some weeks. That there is a star that is over you. There's a star that is speaking on your behalf. There's a star that has your name in it. And in that, there is destiny, there is an assignment with your name, with your purpose that is attached to it. Where is the King of the Jews? We have seen his star and we have come to worship him. We have come to worship him. And so this whole message has been centered around a star is born, a star is born. And I bring all this to a climax in order for you to understand the star now that spoke on behalf of Jesus, that hovered over Jesus, that the wise men that they recognized. This is the reason why I went all the way back to Daniel and I showed you all the stuff about King Nebuchadnezzar and all that stuff, because there is a something that chronicles your life. There's something that goes before you. There's something that is setting the stage for you, and there's more to you than what you know. But we have to bring it all to a head and to understand that the same way that it happened for Jesus is the same way that it's going to happen for you. I want to deal, because basically I'm finished with the message. I just want to talk to you very quickly from the subject, silence of the night, silence of the night, silence of the night, silence of the night. Now, I was intrigued by this particular title that I felt in my spirit, because on one hand, we are very boisterous, we're very verbal, um, and then there's another hand when we are silent. There's another hand where we are silent. Yet, when we look at my backdrop, there's a shine that is in a very dark place, and in this dark place, it is waiting for the illumination of your voice. It is waiting for the actions and the unctioning, the prompting, the engagement of who you've been called to be and what you've been called to do. Your assignment is there. And all that collectively put together in this dark place that is shining, that has your name on it, that knows that the beginning and your end, and in all that that's going on, I hear absolutely nothing. There is silence. There is silence. So no, this ain't silent night. No, this ain't silent night. This is silence of the night. Silence of the night. Now, I want you to, if you followed me, I taught a message some time back, and in the message, the theme of the message was say what you had said, say what you had said, and in that I dealt with these two men that were at a store, and uh, um, they were two men that liked one another and liked one another in a loving way, in an affectionate way, an engaging way. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And so their mannerism was a bit different. There was another guy that was more masculine, and he was in a hurry, and so he got to talking a whole lot of stuff. They was at the cash register, and so he was impatient. Blah blah blah. These two men that were, of another, their behavior was different. They tried to act discreet, and they tried to act like they had some sense and so on and so forth, because they were all there and they didn't want to make a scene. And so this other guy, he just made a scene, and made, just made a butt out of himself. And so eventually, those guys, they paid, the two guys, they paid for what they had to pay for. And the other gentleman, he paid for what he had to pay for. And so the first two, they went out the door, and then he ended up coming out the door. But what happened was that those other two guys, even though they may have been a little soft in the voice and they may have appeared to be weak because of the position that they had taken in life, they were nonetheless, they were men. And so when this other guy came out, he was outnumbered, and these two guys, they confronted him once he got outside. They didn't want to confront him in the store, but once he got outside, those two guys, they confronted him, and they were bigger than him. And so now this guy's demeanor, it changed, and he wasn't as tough and rough as in the store. In the store, you got cameras and you got the cashier, and somebody can hit a button or make a phone call or whatever or what have you. But when you get outside, now you in the real world, and you have to deal with what you have to deal with. So he goes outside, and these other two guys, they confront him, and they say, now, you was talking all that stuff while you were in the store, but now, say what you had said. They said to him, they said, when he got outside, they said, hey, they said, no, no, that is not what was said in the store. Say what you had said. Say what you had said. And so what I'm trying to say is, I want you, don't get in this dark space now. Don't put water on your light. Don't put covers over your light. You've been talking and saying this and saying that all this time, and now it's time for you to put everything that you are, to put it to action. Say what you have said. Don't back down now. Say everything, you big, you bad, you this, you that, you opinionated, all this stuff. You talk about Christ, you talk about Jesus, you talk about the Holy Ghost, and all that stuff, what God can do and what the devil can't do, and all that stuff. You do all that. Now, since we out here in the real world, say what you have said. Say what you have said. Instead of silence. Silence of the night. Silence of the night. Just real quick, just a quick message, just to get you to see that there's a star inside of you. And I'm here today to tell you to allow that star to shine. Say what you had said. Say what you had said. Don't back down now. You've been a Christian, walking the walk, talking the talk, and talk about how good God is, gracious in your life, and God will make ways out of no way, and God will take care of you. Child, don't worry about it. But now it's dark. Everything that happened, child messed up, sick, busted, disgusted. Church and turned his back on you. You sad. It's just one thing after another. No, say what you have said. Because before, when things was good, when you could see your way, you was lifting up the bloodstained banner of Jesus Christ. Now, all of a sudden, you're being challenged. And so you walk outside of, heaven's arena, and you come somewhere close to the world, and the world is pressing you and putting pressure on you. And now you ain't got no money. Now you ain't got no car, no transportation, no house, no food. Your body is ravished with disease, and this is happening and that is happening, and the church ain't there to support you like you thought that they would be there to support you, and just all these different things that are going on now. I'm here to tell you, let your light shine, and say what you had said. Say what you had said. Now, what I want to know in my close, what I want to know, because there's so many things that are going on in this dark space that we live in. There's so many things. There are issues of injustice, injustice issues. Is there nothing to be said about that? Is there nothing about what you've been called to do, that star that is hovering over you? Maybe yours is uh, uh, to confront injustices in society, injustices in your community, injustices in this world. Is there nothing to be said about that? Why are we so silent? Why are we so silent in the night? When I say night, I'm talking about in such a dark place, such a dark world. There are church politics and faith positions that we have all dealt with and taken. Church politics, y'all know about church politics. Is there nothing to be said? All the stuff, you look at the Pope now, that he's taken a different position, that we understood to be Catholicism in one way, is taking on a different face. I'm not here to argue it one way or the other. I got my own personal opinion about it, but is there something to be said? Why are we so silent? Disease and pestilence that are raging in our world, in our community, in our families, in our bodies now. Is there nothing to be said as relates to the Bible? Is there nothing to be said as relates to uh, uh, God's goodness and God's strength and God's power in your life? Why is it now that we have just taken a back seat in a position of defeat? Is there nothing to be said, or should we just be silence? Silence. World poverty and local poverty. Is there nothing to be said to address some of these poverty issues? Poverty is a spirit, but it's got to be something said about it. Why is it that we're setting in the dark and not letting our light shine or raising our voices? The appraisal of teaching institutions that have uh, uh, had patience to teach your children. Why are we not talking more about them and giving them praise? That they would take the time out to teach little Sally and little Johnny with their bad behavior. We say so many bad things about teaching institutions, but the fact that they would take the time out to spend with our children. Is there not an appraisal of uh, what I want to call it? Applause? Is there not an appraisal of applause that would go ahead, accolades that would go ahead to salute them, to say, you know what, kudos to them because they're doing something that I can't do. That is a talent, that is a gift in patience that is before us, but we're being silent on that. We should be lifting that structure up, those teachers up, and letting them know that we appreciate you. Conversely, um, to the contrary, we should be talking against those that are teaching our children the antithesis, that which is opposite of the right thing. Some of our systems and structures, they really don't care. They're hurting your children through schools, through the system. They don't care whether they get an education, whether they can read or whether they can write. And then there's no follow through. There's no follow up because we don't have parents that are really caring. All we know is that the children are supposed to be at school when they get home. It's just day after day. They go from one year to the next year and then they graduate, but we don't know the quality that they have because we have not engaged them enough, nor have we had enough concern with the system that is overseeing their progress. And so there are so many things that has been silent. God's faithfulness has been silent. We haven't been talking about the faithfulness of God enough. We've become mums the word of God's goodness. There's too much silence. There's this silence with God's goodness, God's grace over your life. There's just so much silence with God's grace over your life, his extension to the world, and all that. And so, this little simple message today is just something to tell you, just like Jesus came. And when he came not to be silent. But if I could just say this real quick as it relates to the position that Jesus took, which is found just real quick. I almost forgot this in Luke 4:18. This is how Jesus, um, how he addressed the silence issue and caused his light to shine or his star to shine. It says here in Luke 4:18, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. Is there nothing to be said? That's when we annihilate the silence, when we do what the Lord has called us to do. Jesus shows us there in Luke 4:18 that he put an end to the silence. He has the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he hath anointed me to do this, to do that. In other words, not to be silent, but to do something, to fulfill my purpose and my calling, and to line up with the star. How many of you will today take an inventory of your life and to say, I am going to align myself with the star that is over me, that is ultimately the star that is in me. I am going to fulfill my assignment and my purpose in this journey. Well, I want you to be encouraged. I hope this little message helped you on today. Remember this, men and women of God, the worst is over, the best is yet to come. Your quality of life is getting better and better and better. And because of that, you're going to live and not die. See and declare the works and the will of the Lord for your life. I am Dr. Donnie Eatman. I'm the face of Face-to-Face Ministries. I want you to share this. I want you to like it. I want you to give it a thumbs up. I want you to subscribe. I want you to do all the wonderful things to spread this gospel and this good news. Remember that I love you, but God loves you so, so much more. Go in God's speed, go in God's love, go in God's grace, go in God's mercy, go in God's everything. And until we meet again, shalom, Godspeed.